James, do you have anyone like hiding in the back of your room that's going to show up mid battle at a very integral part to the story and change the entire fight? Or are we done with that at this point? Because we now have had Mirio come back, we have had Best Jeanist, we have had so many people come back after being severely injured and making big moments in this episode, and I am fucking here for it. On top of, I'm going to say, my new favorite character in the entire series, kind of taking a whole different step in Dabi. Well, we'll talk about exactly what I mean about that later. My name is Andrew Nimsgren of the Class 1A podcast, and I'm here with James Graham, and we're here to break down episode 12 of season 6, which is arguably the best episode of the season because every episode of the season as they come out just keep getting better and better. How are you feeling, James? How are you doing after this?
Yeah, I think this episode really had a bit of everything. It was pretty incredible that way. We had the triumphant return of Mirio and Best Jeanist. We had Dabi becoming even more and more unhinged. We had a hero name reveal from Bakugo. Like it was just so much all at once, and it was, oh man, it was a ride. It was an absolute ride. It's crazy they cram it in like 22 minutes. Blows my mind every
I
time.
know it felt really long too. Like
It
it
did.
felt long, but in a good way. Like, wow, so much shit is happening here. Like they're not wasting a second. Because I'm like, okay, it's gonna end here, and then it keeps going for like 4 more minutes. I'm like, okay, I will take it. Give me as much as possible, and that's always a good way of where they can pack a lot of really good moments into 22 minutes. That's how you know it's a phenomenal episode. So I hope everyone
Absolutely.
kind of watching agrees with that. But we will go through a very quick high level recap. Then we have 4 big points to talk through after that. But pretty much for those of you that are watching this a little later than the immediate after recording, it starts off with Best Jeanist coming out of the sky. We kind of see a little bit of him watching the Dabi reveal and all that. And comes out and wraps up everyone with the fiber cables. And from there on out, things look like they'd be going well, but Shigaraki is finally able to somewhat wake up and give an order to Machia to destroy everything, which starts sending him into a rampage, and we see all the fiber cables starting to break, and things are looking bad for the heroes. During all this, we do see that there are going to be a couple of high-end Nomu coming over from the other battlefield, but right as Burning is about to be eaten on that battlefield, we do see a flash of a hero. And then as we go back to the main battleground, we see that 4 Nomu are about to reach there, and right as Best Jeanist is about to pretty much be killed and everything is about to be lost, Mirio does his classic power coming out of the ground and beats the shit out of 4 high-end Nomu, despite no one else being able to handle them at all. And from there, it looks like the hero's victory is going to be all but sure. We have a lot of people that have been injured throughout the entire thing, but Bakugo is getting back up, Nejiri is doing more, and it looks like the heroes are on track to be doing well. And even the knockout juice or whatever, I can't think of what the actual term is, finally kicks in on Machia, and the man goes down so that all those efforts can be put into everyone else and all the other high ends and other people fighting on the battlefield. We get to see a couple clips of a lot of the damage done, but it looks like things are going well for the heroes. But throughout this entire thing, we actually do see that pretty much Todoroki and Dabi have been facing off this whole time. A lot of really good lore moments. Pretty much kind of a side episode of keeping up the Todorokis here, talking about endeavors, feelings, and faces, talking about the family members, a lot of that. As Dabi is about to burn Shoto alive, Deku uses Froppy style to save him, and then Endeavor also finally knocks out of his kind of trance at the very end of the episode as well. So the battle is not over, but things are looking very good for the heroes, and it's very curious to see how things are going to be wrapped up here. Seems like maybe 1 or 2 more episodes at this point before things really get wrapped up and we kind of move on to whatever is the aftermath of this giant war. James, obviously we have a couple points, but any general points you want to talk about for the episode before we move into the big ones?
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna call anesthesia anything other than knockout juice at this point. Like that's gonna be my go-to.
I couldn't think
So
of the
thank
word.
you.
I didn't want to mess it up, so I thought knockout juice was the best
It was,
thing.
yeah, that's perfect. I guess the really big theme I want to touch on is that it seems that this episode is gonna have a ton of like ramifications down the line as well. But with the return to both Jeanist and Mirio in the capacity that, or like how Mirio returned, those are some things I kind of want to touch on like later on. But those like that's gonna send ripples in the My Hero universe, right? Like Eri not erasing somebody, rewinding them, just actually restoring powers. Best Jeanist, despite being declared dead, is now officially back on the battlefield. Those things are quite huge because it like it kind of debunks Dabi, right? So
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I had a couple of general thoughts here, but I think a lot of them are going to be gotten across when we are just talking about it for our big points. So let's just jump right into that.
Yeah.
And the first one I want to talk about is the return of Best Jeanist. Obviously, a lot of kind of the Dabi's Dance episode was trying to break a lot of the trust in the heroes, and the biggest one was the number 2 hero killing Jeanist, who was the number 3 at the time, which is now seen to be fake. So I know there's a lot of other things we want to talk about here, but do you think a lot of what Dabi tried to achieve is now ruined because of Best Jeanist? Or do you think that even Best Jeanist talked about Dabi was planning this at a time when heroes knew they couldn't stop immense damage? Do you think society is still going to kind of be iffy on heroes, or is Best Jeanist coming back and saving the day going to be enough to save the heroes?
I don't think it's going to totally just like 180 and kind of like redeem like all the heroes in the populace's eyes at this point. Like, because I mean, Dabi hit on like obviously Best Jeanist was one thing, but that was more directed towards Hawks specifically. There's not anybody coming out of the woodwork to really like dispute his claims about Endeavor because, well, as we know, they're all true, right? Like all like Endeavor is very much like the person that Dabi kind of painted him to be, especially in his like as a young father kind of thing. So I don't think it's definitely going to restore some faith, but it's obvious like this isn't a complete fix. This is very much just a band-aid.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I think that I prefer it that way. Because obviously the Dabi dance, that whole big reveal was a major thing. And to have it all kind of taken away, and I'm even a little concerned here with how kind of the battle's going. It's like, oh, the hero's just winning suddenly. Machi is down. Everything's going to be fine again. And like, despite everything looking like they're going to lose for once, they're actually fine. And I hope it kind of wraps up in a clean way, because I don't want it just to be, oh, there's always going to be someone that comes and save the day at the last second. The heroes are always going to win. Yeah. That's kind of what it feels like right now, which I'm glad there's another episode or two probably of this battle before that kind of ends. See what happens there. But I do love Jeanist, because I remember when we first saw this, just because it says fiber in the name, he can use like fiber cable.
Fiber cables.
I don't know if that's how it works. Like, I would love to see how he figured that out. But that was just one of the wildest reveals, that anything that has fiber in it, like fiber oats, you could just use that shit too, apparently. Like, who knows how far the word fiber can go for this man.
No, like that's just it. And we like Dylan and I touched on it a bit last week too. But like, Jeanist is kind of like, he started as almost like a gag character. Like, you know what I mean? Wearing the Canadian tuxedo, like very, very like, I don't want to call him pompous, but like posh, a very like posh person, and how he carries himself and everything like that. Especially when we had the entire arc with like Bakugo being under him at his agency. So to see him go from that and really just kind of making a meme of it to him fighting All For One back in Camino, and here again, like, Jeanist is the real deal, and we're dealing with an injured Jeanist right now, right? Like, he absolutely fucks, because that power is so vague, but he's so good at manipulating it. It makes him incredible, and I love that. I love that such a memey character is actually, I would dispute, he must be somebody's favorite for sure. Like, I think, and he's like keeps winning people over every time he shows up, right? He's very heroic. He's super powerful, and you can tell he cares, right? He's not just posh because he wants to be posh. Like, it all seems like genuine emotions with him. Which, so I think, like, you can't hate the guy, right? You can't.
No, I mean, we were saying that after he literally opened like the battle with like 3 back-to-back like clothing puns.
Yeah,
like
doesn't matter.
The threads of fate are spinning and stuff, kind of like that. You like 3 of those back to back to back, and we're just overlooking all that because of how great he is. And I love all that, and I do love that despite we never really saw during the arc that his time with Best Jeanist had any kind of impact. But here we are seeing that clearly it kind of did. He wanted to tell Jeanist his hero name, which we'll talk about here in a second. He really kind of looked back on that time more fondly and was happy when he showed up. So I guess I wish we could have seen that a little bit earlier, because like that came as a surprise that Bakugo cares that much about Jeanist. But
Mm.
at the same point, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm happy that there's someone else that Bakugo kind of looks up to, and I love that moment during the anime when we first saw it. So I won't complain about that, but that's the one thing that came as a surprise to me.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. Like I do wish that they had touched on like the mentor student relationship that these two had a little more, because obviously most of the focus has always been All Might, right, for Bakugo. So to see him have this kind of like this other person who kind of handles this aspect of his life, his presentation, and like not only that, but also like his self reflection too, because that was the big theme of this episode with him and Best Jeanist was, you know, looking outwards and looking towards what you actually want to achieve and stuff like that. I think, yeah, I think it needs a bit more attention. It kind of sucks that it didn't, but I'm still quite happy with what we've gotten.
And by when we say attention, I mean one scene when Best Jeanist went missing, saying "wow," like, and then showing Bakugo looking sad. Like that's all we really needed there.
That's all we're getting, right?
Yeah. But okay. So moving on to the other big reveal. Like I knew coming into the season, these back-to-back episodes were going to be wild. They didn't pan out the exact way I thought they were going to, but going from Dabi's dance to best reveal to Mirio coming in is such a 3 awesome fucking events to happen back to back to back. And I cannot get enough of it. And the Mirio return was everything I wanted it to be. I don't love that we saw him kind of say burning just a second earlier. I wish it would have been just during saving Best Jeanist the first time we officially saw him. But either way, I'll take it. I love the power shout. I love him being as incredible as awesome. And even getting that shot of him underground, which you've never really seen before. All phenomenal. Give me more Mirio. I'm glad the man's back.
Yeah, and I think it's good to see that he doesn't even feel nostalgic about it. Like it hasn't been that long. And that's kind of cool that they put it in perspective too, is that like Mirio really hasn't been without his powers for that long in the grand scheme, right? Yeah. Obviously, I'm sure it feels like a millennium for him, but it's quite a short period of time. And the other thing like about Mirio, despite the fact of having like a badass reveal, and really just kind of turning the tide for the heroes, that this shows that Eri has like very, very well honed her talents, which is like that's insane. That is something I really wanted to talk about, because like where does it end at this point?
Yep.
Where does it stop, right? This is Pandora's box being opened, right?
Yeah, I feel like they did that because they wanted Mirio back in the story. But I do not feel like we're going to touch on it again, because that is literally Pandora's box. How can you have that in there and not, like, what's stopping Deku from having his arms reversed and being able just to have them both broken every single fight for the rest of his life now? Like, unless Eri really wants to go into the medical field, be like the new school nurse or something kind of like that. Like, if you want to go down that route, like, maybe. But, like, anything else beyond that, like, it is just too game breaking. Why isn't All For One going after Eri right now? Because he could turn Shigaraki's back to a peak. He'd recreate his own body. Like, there's too many ways you could take that power. So I'd prefer we never talk about it again than it being a big part. Because otherwise it's so strong. We knew that from the beginning.
Yeah. And I think so they like Horikoshi has kind of covered his ass in 2 aspects. He has made both the like most prominent user for One for All and All for One both past the point of rewinding, because they've kind of passed their power on, right?
Yep.
So, and I don't think that this quirk would intersect with that. I don't think. So like you don't really know, right? But I think with those 2 kind of being out of the equation, that kind of helps things a little bit.
Well, not really. Remember, it was only a copy. All For One still has a copy of his original.
He does have
powers.
a copy. Yeah, no, I do agree, right? But like, yeah. So if any, okay, maybe we're getting what All For One and One for All at 75% vice their original, like 150. True. So, but I mean, yeah, like it is pretty crazy that this has been added back into the mix. And yeah, and you bring up a good point. Like, why isn't All For One trying to like hunt her down, sort of thing? Especially where he's unleashing this massive kind of like attack and stuff like that, in the form of Shigaraki and Makia. So I'm really surprised that they're like they've been like it's not fucking rocket science where they're hiding her. Of course they're gonna hide her at the school in some capacity or another, right? Like why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That's where they go. That's where they do everything, right? So I'm curious to see what happens. I think it's probably not the worst idea if we just never touch on this again, though. It's probably not the worst.
I think the aftermath of the battle will show a lot of how they plan on using it. Because obviously there are a lot of people severely hurt. Aizawa's lost a leg. Deku's both his arms are broken, possibly for the last time ever. Bakugo is probably on the verge of bleeding out. Like, if we see her come in and just like make everyone 100% again, I think that's one thing. But if we don't, I think that's going to show like, no, we're not just going to be using her for basic healing. Like, this is kind of a one-time thing. So I think we'll know by the end of the season how Eri is going to be kind of used going forward, which is a good thing because you don't want that leaning out. Hopefully they give us a solid answer of maybe put her like in a coma for like a month. And like each time is going to be more and more. Like, I don't know. Like, it's bad. I don't wish a coma onto a child, but
yeah, you just did that. It's like this is like an 8-year-old that you're like, she should go in a coma for at least a month.
I said maybe she did, but moving on to someone that's probably going to be into a coma for a month after this battle is over. Finally, we got Bakugo's hero name.
Yeah, it's
Great
it's a mouthful.
Explosion, murder god, dynamite. And the reactions were, I think, what a lot of people watching it probably were like, what? That's lame. And then Mirio was, that's so funny. That's really the three ways. Like, confusion, that's dumb, and laughter, the only three ways you can react to this name. And I'm okay with any of those three because I love it. I want more of it. This is what I wanted from him.
Just such a mouthful, man. It's so much. And like I was really banking for like a really like sentimental moment with him and Jeanist when he did this reveal, and like Jeanist just like so goddamn disappointed, right? Like it's just devastating to him. So I don't know. Can you even like acronymize that? Like no, you only got
GEMG. No, yeah, it's
oh, God.
It is not. But I love that both heroes and villains both thought it was lame.
Oh
like,
yeah,
we even
like,
saw like Spinner and Compress were doing it, and Ezra like no one was on board with it. And then Bakugo got pissed when Mirio said that's funny and like a future without laughter and like enjoyment isn't one, which pissed Bakugo off even more. So who knows if that ends up being it? It's a really fun moment. It was something that I loved. Maybe he just takes explosion, dynamite, or kind of great explosion or something kind of like that out of there as like the final hero name, but it's just a fun moment during a very, very serious episode, which I think hit really well.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's Mirio's thing too, right? Like Mirio's so happy-go-lucky and so positive all the time, and like jokey, just regardless of what situation he's in. So I think it complements it really well.
Yeah, so not too much to say here. I'd love to hear what people kind of think about the hero name. And we'll see how that's being used afterwards. Maybe people sit Bakugo down like, nope, that cannot be your actual hero name. I don't know where it'll go, but that was fun. Because I want to spend the last of our time talking about Dabi. I mean, obviously last week was Dabi's big episode. I know you guys probably talked a lot about him, but this episode was a whole new level of deranged, even on top of last week where we saw him starting to break. Like, he clearly went over the end. And when I say Dabi is my new favorite character in My Hero Academia, obviously I have personal favorites. I have characters I connect to, but from a voice acting, from an animation, and from like a emotional story arc state, number one character. I don't think any voice actor has reached the levels of what Dabi's did this episode between just sounding completely deranged. I could have watched this without any subtitles and know exactly the emotions and the things he was trying to get across just through Japanese, and I don't know a goddamn word of Japanese. It was phenomenal acting, and it cannot be matched.
That's just it. I think his VA Hiro Shimono, just like I haven't heard a better villain in so long. Like it's just like the emotion he captures for this character is just absolutely incredible every time, and like you get to actually see like him falling further and further into this obsession of really just looking to harm Endeavor in any way possible, physically, emotionally, mentally. Like, he's just looking for any avenue he can. Because, like, Todoroki even kind of called him out on it. He's like, you were going to, like, burn up Natsu, right? Who is kind of, like, like he's like a third party in this whole kind of dispute, and Dabi just doesn't care because it's all about fucking with Endeavor. So, I can't. Like he's on par for me as high of an effective villain as Shigaraki. Yes, of course, like Shigaraki's hellbent on like basically destroying everything, but Dabi is just so laser focused on ruining Endeavor, and he's so fucking good at it, right? Like he's just so insane. So between him and between that whole thing, and then him and Todoroki squaring off, basically this entire episode, it's been so good, man. It's been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it has really been the highlight of the war for me. I knew it was going to be, but these last 2 episodes kind of shine brighter than a lot of the rest of the season so far for me. I just can't get enough. I don't have much else to say beyond that because I'm just so fixated on everything I want. I want to see how the conclusion is going to come. I don't think we're going to see it come to a conclusion here during the war arc, sadly. Because again, it just feels like it's all wrapping up too quickly. You can't have Dabi, you can't have Shigaraki, you can't have all of them going down so quickly after 6 seasons of build-up. So again, very curious how all this kind of comes to an end. If Dabi's actually able to pull away, if maybe Dabi gets injured in some way because he is so obsessed in this moment and everyone else seems to be shaking out of it. I want there to be a good conclusion to it, but I don't think there's an ending to it. But I love that we're going to have kind of a debrief session and probably these 3 fighting again in the future and seeing how that comes to an end. I can't wait. And now with all that out in the air, we can have the conversations about that. Maybe we can learn more about what actually happened to Dabi and kind of how we got to the point. Now that we have that Toya reveal made, we can start digging into everything else and building it even deeper emotional. Because keeping up the Todorokis has always just been Shoto versus Endeavor. And now it is kind of that 3-way triangle of Todoroki hating Endeavor more than ever, but being conflicted about his feelings toward Toya. And like it adds more depth to that, which I know we make fun of keeping up the Todorokis, but I love Shoto as a character, so I'm never going to be upset with more screen time for him, especially at a more emotional state that we've been seeing from in the last season or 2.
Yeah, and a big thing I kind of want to circle back to as well is that you talked about like it feels too quick to wrap everything up. And I think our next episode reveal kind of shows that like it may not something's gonna happen that may not wrap it up like in a nice nice little box, and it's just gonna be because it's all about like Mr. Compress, right? He has the magician kind of like wizardy kind of trope, like misdirection shit like that, right? So I'm hoping that if it doesn't go from everybody's just captured and everybody's like badly beaten and bruised and that's it. It's gonna be some bullshit out of left field because of Mr. Compress. So I'm kind of hoping for that. And he's pretty due. He's
had nothing.
He's had nothing.
He was like him and Spinner were the only 2 that didn't get a moment during the League of Villains, the League of Villain arc last season. So I think he's absolutely due for a moment. How good it'll be, we'll see. But they did end the episode with him making that big villain proclamation that people do make here and there. So he's gonna do something. However it lands, we'll see. But I think I don't watch the previews for next week's episodes actually.
Oh, you don't?
No, I usually don't. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine knowing that and talking about that. But I am just kind of curious to see how that kind of comes to it.
Yeah, I'm pumped. It keeps getting better. It keeps delivering.
And we have one last thing to wrap up the episode with, which is going to be the Plus Ultra Award, where we each decide on a character that went beyond, that went Plus Ultra. And James, lead us off with who you think is this week's first Plus Ultra.
It's got to be Jeanist. Mirio came back, I know, but Jeanist, man, he holds the line. He delivers on all fronts. He went from a meme character to an absolute weapon while still being a meme character. You can't beat it, dude. You can't beat it at all. I know Lemillion saves Jeanist, but Jeanist is on the ground first. So
no, I definitely wouldn't give it to Lemillion. He comes back. If anyone, I'd give it to fucking Eri, which I'm not going to. But Eri is the reason Lemillion's back. Yeah. He's just doing what he normally does. That's so true, I have to agree with Best Jeanist. I was trying to bounce around and think of anyone else. Eri did cross my mind for a second because she did get complete control over her powers, be able to revert something life-altering in 6 months' time, which is incredible. Yeah. But Best Jeanist in this episode that we actually saw do stuff, held it down, literally changed the tide of the entire battle within minutes. and I just can't think of anyone else. I'm glad to have him back. I'm glad to see that he's probably going to be part of the story going forward. Since a lot of other heroes are out of commission, we need to bring in new heroes, and Best Jeanist is going to be one of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that'll be all for this week's Class 1A episode. Thank you all so much for listening. We will, of course, be back next Saturday, maybe. We'll actually post about that on our YouTube channel and on twitter.com. As the holidays coming up, a lot of people are going to be out. We'll be bouncing around, figuring stuff out. So we will be back to cover all future episodes eventually. Just keep an eye out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/class1a, to stay updated with everything there. But have a great weekend, and we'll see you all later.